Okay. Well, now we come to the Q&A on the subject we just discussed, which is how and why I remain unloving. So let's get started. Pat, would you like to start?
I'm trying to get hold of that choice point.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel a large part of my will is moving toward fear of being unloving.
Yeah.
There's a tiny bit
Yeah.
that moving toward loving.
When you say fear of being unloving?
No, toward fear
Toward
or toward being unloving.
Oh, right. Yeah, gotcha.
I
Yeah.
think, to me, the choice to go to fear is unloving. The choice to go to love or truth is loving.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know that I've used my willpower for 65 years to push down feelings.
Mm-hmm. Which we'll talk about more in a few days' time as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and somewhere in the first assistance group, when we talked about willpower, maybe I need to wait for this.
Yeah.
But it was, as though willpower wasn't a good thing. But isn't there a way it can be used here? That I can use willpower to choose love?
Well, you see, the choices, this is the conundrum many of you are in, right? The choices are made within your soul.
Yeah.
And they govern your behaviour and actions. They govern what you decide to do in your mind. Do you follow me? Mm-hmm. So, as I've always said to you, the mind is like a tool that the soul uses based on the soul's choices. Now, for the majority of you, the soul is choosing to avoid emotion. That's the choice made at the soul level. You follow me? So, in fact, the choice we're making at the soul level collectively is we're choosing to avoid faith, avoid truth, and avoid action, and avoid emotion. Those four things that we've talked about just in our previous discussion, right? Now, if that's a choice that is being made at the soul level, for whatever reasons the soul has for making those choices, can you see that the mind either doing the willpower thing and trying to overcome the will of the soul is not going to work because the choice has already been made in the soul, right? Or the mind will support the choice, which is what's happening for the majority of us. The mind is actually supporting the choice that we're making at the soul level. Do you follow me? So, and when I say supporting it, the soul says, avoid, avoid, avoid. And the mind goes, okay, just tell myself a lie. That's way of avoiding. Do you follow? And so you tell yourself a lie, so you get to avoid something. Or the soul says, avoid, 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 and you go, oh, just justify the fact that it's done, you just did that. And that's a great way of, again, supporting the avoidance of these particular things. So the big issue, and this is the thing that we're discussing with you, and obviously it's going to be a 6-day discussion, so there's more to present to you about these particular issues. But the big problem is what's happening at the soul level. What's happening in your emotional state. That's the things that are driving your choices and decisions. So everything we've talked about the last day and a half is all about the choices you're making at your emotional level, not the intellectual level. Many of you believe you're not making those choices even intellectually, but you are still engaging them emotionally. So you're still making the same choices. So the question then becomes, well, how do I shift my soul from a state of avoiding dealing with emotions, avoiding faith, avoiding truth, avoiding taking action? How do I shift my soul from that particular state? Right? And the very first step is to actually see that we want to be in that state. That's the very first step. And that's why we've raised this issue with you, right? So we need to come to see that actually I want to stay in this state of avoidance. Now, as we saw yesterday, we have many belief systems that have been encouraged from our childhood onwards that cause us to believe that there's good reasons for wanting to stay in this state of avoidance. And obviously, we need to address some of these belief systems. So yesterday's conversation was all about the belief systems about love, in particular the belief systems about God's love and God that I need to start working on. I need to see that I have them. I need to see that actually the way I view God is much worse than I thought I viewed God, right? And that's what's causing me to think that self-reliance is best, that I'm better to stay in the state I'm in than I am to change anything. That's a major motivator, right? Because we're avoiding these emotions. So these emotions about God are driving us. Now then we discovered, they're not emotions about God, right? Because God never treated us that way. So they're actually emotions about the family of origin. And so my avoidance of feeling emotion at about the family of origin, the events that happened in my childhood, my choice to avoid that is actually causing all these beliefs about God and causing all these beliefs about love. So can you see that one of the best things I could choose to do is to feel emotion about my family of origin? This is what the majority of you are avoiding. You're avoiding that process. If you just allowed yourself to surrender to many of these emotions and many of the events that have happened in your childhood and allowed yourself just to grieve them and work your way through them, then the process of change would be already naturally occurring, right? But we don't want to. We don't want to do that. This is a choice we're making at the soul level. And that choice at the soul level has to change. Now, how do you change a choice? By educating yourself about what is right and what is wrong, about educating yourself with the truth, right? So this is why the truth becomes a very important part of the process of you discovering your emotions. You need to come to actually honour the truth in your life. And that, again, is a choice within the soul. It's a choice that needs to happen there. Now, how do you educate yourself to make that choice? How do you naturally make that choice? You educate your soul to understand the benefits of choosing truth over the pain and suffering of choosing lies, right? And this is why we've got to have further discussions about those particular subjects. Because we need at some point to educate our soul to make a different choice, and our soul is making the choice that it's currently making because it believes that avoidance is the best course of action. And we are denying a whole heap of things. We're denying pain, we're denying suffering, we're denying all of these things as if we've chosen them. We're acting as if we didn't choose them. We're acting as if that some other responsibility is somewhere else, even God's responsibility. You know, God didn't create us perfect. That's one of our justifications that these things are happening. The reality is we're doing all of that because we want to avoid the process of seeing the cause and effect relationship between choice and outcome. Choice, outcome, decision, outcome. So one of the best ways to change the will of the soul is to have a very, very honest self-examination of the choices you've made and the outcome as being the result of the choices you've made. Do you understand? And this is what I feel most people are not doing. Most people are thinking that, I have an accident. It was because that person was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and because that person chose to do this, and that person chose to do that, and I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time too. But there's no asking, why was I in the wrong place at the right time? What was going on for me? What inside of me created these particular things? We don't see the relationship between cause and effect. We are actually removing ourselves from the relationship of cause and effect. And this is the biggest issue, one of the big issues we face. To convince our soul to make a different choice, we need to face up to some basic truths. And one is the truth of cause and effect, for example, that everything that happens to us, which is the effect, has a cause which led to that effect. And that cause happens to be inside of us. Now, once we come to terms with that one law, for example, we'll start going, okay, I've got a headache. There's an effect. The cause has to be something happening inside of me. Right? I've got the choice to go and get a headache tablet to suppress the effect, or I could deal with this cause and have the effect permanently erased. Which one am I going to choose? And then I go, oh, today I want to choose taking the tablet, so I go and take the tablet. And the next day, oh, I'll choose taking the tablet. I'll take the tablet. Next day, I take the tablet. Now, that's going to make a pharmaceutical company better off, but I doubt in the long run whether that's going to make you better off. And at some point, you've got to go, hang on a sec, I'm just taking tablet after tablet after tablet after tablet here. What if I actually instead address the cause? Then I would not have a headache to take a tablet for. That would be far better, wouldn't it? And this is a process of educating your soul to make different choices, you see? And that has to happen before you can change something. At the moment, many of you are just going, oh, I know this is the right thing to do, so I'm just going to try to do that. But that's not educating your soul to make a different choice. That's forcing your soul to make a different choice. And your soul is going to try to make the choice that it still wants to make still, because you've not released the reason why it's making it. And the reason why it's making it is because it believes something different. You actually, in your emotions, believe something different to what you're telling yourself. And that's never going to be a good thing. It's far better to go, this is how I feel about this subject. It was great yesterday when I asked you how you felt about God, because you told me how you felt about God. It was wonderful. That's the start. And then I presented to the concept, well, you've never had an interaction with God, so how do you know that God's like this? And you go, oh, I haven't thought about that, right? That causes your soul to ponder. The feelings inside of you to go, oh, the feelings inside of you start changing then. There's an awareness that grows, feeling-wise awareness, that goes, oh, I'm feeling I'm blaming somebody for something they've never done. That doesn't feel good if I do that, if somebody does that with me. So obviously it's probably not good if I do it with somebody else, and particularly not good if I do it with God. So maybe I can change that. Why do I want to do that? Oh, it's because I want to avoid all my family emotions. That's why I want to do that. You see, a lot of you, what I've noticed a lot of you trying to do is you're trying to feel a group of emotions which are not actually there. Right? And of course, you can't feel emotions that are not there. You've got to actually feel the emotions that are there. And the very first layer of emotion that everyone has to at some point choose to feel if they're going to progress is the emotions of avoidance, the ones that drive avoidance. And all of those are belief systems. And the only way you change a false belief is educating yourself with truth. It's the only way you change a false belief. And then, of course, you put it into action, and the action has an outcome that builds your faith. So the next time you're in the same position, you go, oh, last time I did that and I had that outcome. The time before I did the opposite thing and had a bad outcome, that tells me that the good outcome is going to come from this type of action, and I take that action again, and lo and behold, I get a good outcome. Now my soul's getting an education, right? Feeling. I've got a feeling-based education. Actually, it feels right to make this decision now rather than the decision to avoid. Does that make sense? So it's going to be a process that begins with your acknowledgement of truth. Educating yourself with truth. Yep.
Thank you.
And it's a very good question, Patty. Most of us avoid the education of truth and then expect our soul to change. And so to do that change, we've got to hear the truth and then intellectually decide, I'm going to do the right thing, which many of you have tried. And what's the outcome? It hasn't worked, right? Like Mary and I had this discussion like only probably 6 months ago. I was just saying it, babe, look, you're still using willpower rather than your will. The feeling coming from you is you don't want to do this particular thing, so feel that. Feel that you don't want to do those things. If you feel that you don't want to, eventually you'll get to the point of actually feeling differently. Because the more you feel the emotion that's really in your soul and release it, and this is a basic truth, if I feel all emotion coming out of my soul, if it's an error, it will be felt and afterwards released. Right? If it's a truth, it'll be felt and solidified. It's beautiful the way God's made us, right? Because do you understand that, what I've just said there? It's a very important basic principle that most people don't really grasp until they've felt quite a lot of their emotion, right? But what you realise after a while of processing through actual truthful emotions, even the emotions of avoidance are truthful emotions. By processing through these actual truthful emotions, you get to see that actually I don't have to worry about whether it's an error or a truth, because if it's an error and I process it, it'll be gone. It won't be in me anymore. That's a relief. And if it's a truth and I process it, it'll be solidified. It'll remain within me. And this like prevents me from having to worry about the emotion. Like I know myself now, all I got to do is feel every actual emotion I have. Isn't that fantastic? I don't have to choose which one's bad and which one's good, because anything that's in error will be released from me if I feel it, and anything that's truth will be processed and solidified if I feel it. So we go Natalie, Graham, and Dave.